to highlight that, because this is definitely what I see as a gap in service provision for young people in this township. The tester can get the person who's sitting there test to change lanes. That's one of the big criteria. And I believe we meet that in terms of coming up to the roundabouts here. So there are 4 lanes and they do go for quite some distance. So there's several things to that test, and I just invite you all to go into that link, have a look, and you know, drive around yourselves and see what you think.
Absolutely, thank you. I think it's a good initiative.
Okay.
Tony, did you want to add anything as the NZTA? So what's your...
No, I fully support what you're trying to achieve, and like Kelly was saying, I don't think it matters where you live. It's having Whitianga as an option to sit your driver's test, no matter where you are. So you could be in Thames, but say you happen you're going to be here for a week, and that suits you, well, have it here. So I fully support what you're trying to do, being mindful that NZTA have got their regulations around what you have to do to achieve your driver's licence.
Right. How do you think you might be able to support the social services to get this underway? Because I certainly know that John Wright, the principal of the school, has given me written support. Andrew McCartney from Valley Education and Training has also done the same. Is it possible to get a letter of support from the community board?
I would think so. We just need to go and have a look at that link, and perhaps ask staff to explore a little bit further. But I think a written letter by all means,
That would be wonderful.
Okay.
Right,
Thank you, and thank you for coming in. All right, Lynn Salt, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Jennifer's just passing out copies of what I'm proposing, but there'll be the main bullet points will be up on the screen there. If I run over the 5 minutes, please, the main points are on that document there, so if I run over, just tell me to shut up and go away. Thank you. Stopwatch on?
Yeah, I know the mayor has one. I should get myself one.
Thank you, Alan. An alternative water supply for Whitianga. Purpose of this presentation is to make a formal proposal to the board from Whitianga Residents and Ratepayers Association on the subject of an alternative water supply for Whitianga. We propose the following resolutions. The Mercury Bay Community Board explore all available opportunities to secure an out-of-budget allocation of $150,000 that our share of the first tranche of the $761 million Three Waters funding, either of these parcels would be sufficient to cover the cost of the proposed study. Two, the Mercury Bay Community Board worked to include the findings of this study in the TCDC long-term plan and exercise all care to ensure that work on the identified preferred alternative is adequately funded and prioritised as early as possible in the LTP work schedules. Three, that Community Board recognised the potential risks to the health, safety and well-being of the people of Whitianga posed by any significant interruption to the sole water supply for the township of Whitianga. And last, the Mercury Bay Community Board heed the warnings given by NIWA and numerous climate scientists about the very real potential for yet another severe drought this summer and in future summers, and recognise the urgency of the problem faced by all of us who live here. Our Residents and Ratepayers Association, as an organisation and as individual members, will be making submissions on the TCDC water demand strategy in due course. We also look forward to receiving further information on the proposed Three Waters reforms and being part of the public consultations for these reforms. However, as TCDC Chief Executive Rob Williams rightly pointed out at a recent council meeting, while those reforms are being prepared and we wait to see the scope of those proposed changes, we need to continue with business as usual. And our council needs to continue working on ways to provide the infrastructure needed for our town and other parts of the district. Any work that we do now and the associated costings included as part of those studies will be extremely useful once the funding is identified as part of the LTP or as part of the Three Waters reforms. And this really goes down to the sort of shovel-ready projects that we know about. If Community Board do not undertake this investigation now, and if the Board wait until the investigation is included in the LTP, as has been proposed already, then we will have lost another year before we even begin the process. The LTP deliberations do not finish until the end of June 2021. We cannot afford to wait that long before we make a start. Last summer, the people of Whitianga were faced with a drought that has been acknowledged as one of the worst that we ever experienced. Along with that drought came a warning from the meteorologists and the climate scientists. Get used to it, this is the new normal. For those of us living in Whitianga, the consequences of last summer's drought were more than 6 months of water restrictions. The briefing document released a week ago on the water demand strategy indicated that Mercury Bay had just 10 days of water restrictions, if I'm reading it right. And please correct me if I'm wrong. That surprised us. Because as far as we're aware, there was 6 months of water restrictions, not 10 days. So if we're making decisions based on the information in that strategy document, then we need to look at that. There's something wrong there. Our immediate concern, however, is what we see as the very real potential for a serious health and safety crisis if we get another drought or interruption to our one and only water supply. We don't have a backup plan. When Coromandel Town had a problem with their water tankers, tankers were brought in to keep them going. It's not a practical option for our town, for a town the size of Whitianga. I just want to remind you, last summer, people who did have tanks were buying water at $300 for a 10,000 litre load. Then the price went up to $700 for a load until the people at Matarani said, no more, stop stealing our water. Then it went to $900 a load and the tankers were coming from Thames. And then finally the price went to $1,100 a load and the tankers were coming from Hamilton. The people of Whitianga are prepared to be patient and reasonable and will work with the council towards a long-term solution, but only if we know there's a plan in place and our community board staff and councillors are working towards a resolution. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Lynn. All right, thank you for coming in and sharing that. It's something that we will need to discuss.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Lynn. Right, next I would like to ask John Evans to join us.
Good morning, all.
Morning, John.
Probably 90% of you know what I'm going to talk about, and that is just to reinforce the difficulties that Buffalo Beach has from the northern end, from the already in place rock wall, homeowners rock wall, across the front and the face of two houses, boating club, and continue on to and into Maori land. I just wanted to reinforce that particular problem. If we have another couple of northeasterly ocean swells come in, then the two trees in front of the house there will go. The waves are impacting on the land face, and in the last month and a half, 2 months, 1.8 metres of land has gone. It's creeping towards the boating club. We don't want to lose the boating club because it's a facility that our 55 odd plus young kids from not only Whitianga but a greater area learn to sail. Jonathan, the Commodore here, is doing a fantastic job in that respect. Some councillors have said to me, well, we'll just move the boating club. Well, that's very nice, but where the hell do you move it to? And who's going to pay for that? The quotation that I've got from Ray Blackley, who did the last rock wall in front, Talbot Rock and South, is a total sum of $437,000, which, if you take a contribution to the last two houses that contribute privately, we call that $20,000 per house, brings it down to $397. $397,000. That to me sounds, and the people I've spoken to, sounds a very, very reasonable amount for protecting a 190 metre length of beach, which is the worst part of the beach at the moment, with the least amount of land mass before we hit the road. And my question to the community board is, can you support this function by way of forcing a consent to WRC so that we can at least get this coupled with a couple of groins going, because if we don't, it will go. And all the sand is going, has been going for years now on a 1.5 metre knot drift north to south, which is why it's building up by the river entrance. So, I mean, that's really where it's at. We need to move quickly. We can't move the red line back further because it's really where it is now is really where the red line is, and we have to protect it from right now. I know the TCDC's got no money, and I know we're already in debt, but what's $397,000 or $400,000 in the overall scheme of things? If we've got to work out a levy against ratepayers later, then let's do that. But let's get the bloody wall in place so we can protect what we've got left and a couple of groins out, so we can catch what minimal sand is remaining on a very flat beach and start to build it up. And we know groins work, they work all around the world, they work at Flaxmore Bay as well. Anyway, that's all I would say on that.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you for coming in.
No problem.
Does anyone have any questions? Tony's got one. Sorry, John, before you go.
Yes.
Tony's just got a question for
Yes,
you.
John, there was a meeting, I think last week,
Yep.
that we weren't, but there was a gathering of people at, including the mayor. I understand there was a suggestion about how this might be funded. You wouldn't like to tell us what that was, would you?
I don't know how, I'm not privy to that.
Okay.
You're referring to the yacht, the meeting at the yacht club?
Yeah.
Yeah, we were all there. There was a number of suggestions.
But I've heard, I've heard, but I wasn't there, that there was a suggestion that funding could be a third, and who the thirds were, I don't know, but I'm assuming the thirds were going to be Waikato Regional Council, Thames-Coromandel District Council, and the boating club / homeowners. But I don't know, I wasn't there, I'm just asking the question, so I've got that on a record here.
Well, speaking on behalf of the voting club, and Jonathan will correct me if I'm wrong, the voting club doesn't have any money. The voting club operates on a voluntary basis, and I'm quite sure that selling sausages would never get a third to their part of it. I mean, we are talking peanuts in the overall scheme of things for the council.
We're not going to debate this now.
No, I'm just going to.
Okay. All right, one last question, but just so you all know, this is not the forum to solve this, but thank you for coming in.
John, I'm just interested in your word and I'd like you to comment. You use the word force, WRC. What do you mean by force? Because you use the word force in your
I use the word force. I didn't. Maybe I did.
and I just couldn't understand what you mean by the word force.
Well, we've got a problem with WRC, haven't we? The Dennis Checks of this world who want to let everybody come and go and take out roads and take out houses.
You've answered my question, I think. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
No, it's okay.
All right, and next on our list is Dennis T.
Oh,
There we are. Welcome.
sorry, Dennis, but I had to say. Everybody else says it.
Being off quick.
Good
Welcome.
morning, everyone. Thank you for seeing me today. Just to introduce myself, I'm the Thames-Coromandel representative on the Regional Council, and I'm on a committee called Regional Connections. And its focus has really been all around Hamilton and, getting transport in Hamilton. And I'm the only representative out in the sticks. So I see it as my role to try and promote greater connections out in our region and other parts, away from Hamilton. And so basically that's why I'm here, to see what appetite local communities have for some sort of expansion. So I've been around the traps. I think this is the 5th community board I've spoken to, and I've also made a presentation to Hauraki District Council. And there are 2 parts to the presentation. The first is just an introduction, thanks, where we just look at the law. So the first thing to emphasise is that transport is a core service in the Local Government Act. So it's right up there with solid waste collection and network infrastructure and so on. So it's a core function of councils. And the second one I'd like to emphasise, and what I'm going to speak to a wee bit more, is the needs of persons who are what are called transport disadvantaged. These are people who don't have access to any other way of getting around. So those are 2 things in the law. Secondly, who does what? There's often a bit of confusion around that. So basically, Regional Council does the contracting and the procurement and the administration of public transport. They'll get the contracts and so on, but they actually don't provide the funding, and I'll come to that in a minute. And in terms of district council functions, it's really just the infrastructure around public transport. So that will be things like, bus stops and shelters and stuff like that. So moving on to the transport disadvantage, that's really what transport's all about. It's trying to provide a service to those people who can't get around. So firstly, quite a large chunk of the population actually don't have a driver's licence, either by choice or they lose it as they age or for some other reason. And a huge chunk of people feel isolated and can't get out. And to a degree, we all experienced that ourselves during COVID, didn't we? And so if you imagine, for a lot of people, that's their day-to-day reality all the time. 25% of the population have a disability, and 14% have some quite serious mobility impairment. And then, of course, we all know our demographic here. Already over 30% of our population on Thames-Coromandel is over 65, and that's going to double in the next 25 years. And that's the demographic that fall into those categories I just mentioned earlier. So funding, it's a bit, if you just think about the funding that is provided for local roads, it's a bit like that. There's a 50-odd% subsidy from central government through NZTA. And then if you're outside of Hamilton, where they're separately rated for public transport, then it's a local share. And that's where your role comes into this, as to how much you're prepared to fund this sort of thing. And when there's a crossover between two districts, then you have to haggle with the adjoining district as to how much you share that local share. So in terms of cost recovery, some comes from fares, but it's highly subsidised. As I said, the rest from NZTA and the other half from local share. And so this is the first of the two proposals. Now this has come not from a proposal of mine, but from the local community. So I understand that Cheryl, who just spoke before with social services, indicated a strong support. I know there's a commercial operator in town who was interested in replicating the Thames service. And I just spoke with Len a couple of days ago, and he's indicated there's very strong support from Grey Power, for example, locally in this town. So the Thames service, just to give you an idea how that operates, it's a small van, 17-seater. It operates Monday to Friday between 9 AM and 3 PM. There are 5 circuits a day on a fixed timetable. And if you are over 65, you've got the Super Gold card, within those timeframes you can travel for free. And if you don't qualify under that, then the fare is $2 for adults and $1 for children. I found this, I promoted this service before I was elected, and I've been actually quite astounded at the level of appreciation for it now that it's up and running. So I get people coming up to me in the street and saying, thank you for the service. I'm over 65. Just as one anecdote, my husband's in a rest home at the other end of town. I've lost my licence, and if it wasn't for this bus, I wouldn't be able to visit my own husband. Mm-hmm. That's the sort of connection and so on that the service can bring. So it's I think it's been successful, and District Council I think has agreed to make it a permanent service. So initially it was for a trial of a year or so, and now it'll be extended. So next slide, thanks. So if you base it on the costs in Thames, if you take into account the subsidy, we'll just go back, thanks.
Sorry.
There we go. So the Thames cost is $44,000 per annum. I think, I'm not sure of these figures, but I think it works out to around $5 per Thames ward ratepayer a year to have that service. I'm not sure how that would pan out here, but probably something similar. And that's assuming the subsidy from NZTA. Next one, thanks. So that's the first proposal. The second one, I'm not going to spend so much time on. I think I've had an indication from Alan there isn't maybe an appetite for this, but I'll just run through it anyway. So the idea is to have a sub-regional hub based on Thames and have outlying towns feed into Thames, say once a week, and you'd use just the one vehicle, and you'd have 2 return trips on that day. So this is just just an example, but Coromandel day 1, Whitianga the next day, and so on. And the next slide, thanks. So it would be what's called an upon-demand service. That's what's suggested by the transport planners in WRC. And you could combine Tairua and Whitianga, yes.
Do you say feeding to Thames, is this purely sort of to contact to working with the hospital there? Is that why you see this?
No, I think it's a two-way street. So it's actually for people wanting to get from Thames to Whitianga, they can do that, right. and vice versa. And it would be for a shopping trip, medical for sure, but visiting, relatives and friends and that sort of thing.
And connect with those ongoing buses.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
So there are some options whether you combine it, with the other way around through Coromandel or through Tairua. Next one, thanks. So the idea would be a upon-demand service, which is a new concept. It's being used in Timaru, and I think quite successfully. Next slide, thanks. So you'd use your cell phone and or an 0800 number. You'd ring up and book a ride, and you could do that either on the spot or, weeks or months ahead, that kind of thing. And the indicative cost for that would be the Mercury Bay Ward. It's very much a rough figure, but around $28,000, $30,000 to be involved in a once a week service. So next one, just to wrap it up, it's a question of who's in and who's out. Now, I've had an indication pretty strong from Coromandel Community Board that they favour another option. I'll just briefly mention this because I think it's quite relevant, is to use the Thames connector and have a service early in the morning, 7:30, leaving Coromandel, going down the Thames coast. The bus does the Thames connector and goes back in the afternoon. So it's probably unlikely they would want to be part of a sub-regional hub. And the indications I'm having from, and this is unconfirmed yet, but from Taira and Tongamata, they are a bit ambivalent about it as well. So it may be that that's not going to make the mark. But I think the internal service within Whitianga is something that maybe is worth serious consideration.
Yeah, thanks. Kelly?
Question for Dennis through the chair. We have like the summer bus service that services our eastern beaches. Would the internal service look perchance at doing a Kuatumu-Matarangi link? Because I know some people are disadvantaged out there in terms of getting into town.
Well, I think that's always an option. It's a question you start and then you can build on, and that's what's happened with the Thames connector. So now it looks like it's going to be extended to a Coromandel run either side of it.
Okay.
The key thing around this is cost, and once you go to a second vehicle, then the costs start really going up. So if you can use the one vehicle, then it's much more costly. The other point I'd make is around commercial. There are commercial services, but when you get the 50% subsidy, you get the benefit of that in terms of fares. So, for example, a fare from Whitianga to Thames would be in the region of $5. One way. So it's a lot cheaper than the commercial options.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions for Dennis? Excellent. Thank you for coming in. Thank you. Is there anybody in the room that hasn't spoken that would like to speak? No, fantastic.
I've just have
sorry.
a question, relating to the beach erosion issue and the.
Would you like to come, Jonathan, to the table?
From the boating club. I just wondered if, when I was here, I think it was 1 month ago, we had some support from the community board to our goal, but I just wondered, in the time since that last meeting, have we moved forward in any way at all? Or is it still something that's a shared goal, but with no clear path to get to it?
I understand that there's been some staff have had some meetings, or obviously there was that wider meeting where the mayor was, and then Alan staff have had some meetings with John as well.
There was the idea of trying to get at least a resource consent started. It was, did I understand that correctly?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, exactly that thing that John finished up, sort of, how do we move forward? I mean, the stumbling when you throw the numbers around.
It's cost and consent, isn't it?
It's difficult to make a decision, I guess. How do
If I can wrap this up from my perspective, and maybe do you want to speak, or?
Yeah, just briefly, yeah.
Why don't you do yours first then?
So staff-wise, we followed up. So at this stage, the only action has been a one-to-one meeting that I've had with John, which was really very positive in terms of at least getting the information out. And John had got the estimate from Ray Blackler in terms of cost and things like that, so that's given us a better indication. So now it's up to me to work with our coastal engineering staff and bring a report back to the community board, which we're aiming to do for the next meeting.
And from our side, I just wanted to say that as a club, we're not sitting back and saying, look, we've got a problem, can you fix it? We want to be part of the solution. From our side, what we do though is we charge a nominal amount for the courses that we offer. Nothing that could allow us to participate in a large way with the repairs or the wall or groins or anything like that. The other thing is we're at this point, we're in a phase where we're not trying to grow our club. We feel we've reached a point where, especially with the uncertainty of what's going to happen in the future with the building, we actually are hunkering down, streamlining our courses, offering as many courses as we can, but not trying to grow exponentially as much as we could, given the demand. The other thing, we have taken it upon ourselves to look at what it would actually cost to move that building. And it's, we do have firm quotations from a Hamilton firm that does that sort of thing. So we're looking at all the options as well. And of course, the last thing we're doing is monitoring with the use of the dad who's the surveyor. We're just watching very closely the retreat of that bank so we can actually report back if something changes for better or for worse. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Jonathan. Anybody else? We've captured everyone, all right. Can I please have a mover and a seconder for public forum?
I'll move it.
Thank you, Dally, seconded by Murray. Right, where's my agenda? Oh, sorry, all those in favour? Aye. Opposed, none, carried, fantastic. All right, that takes us to any items not on the agenda, and there are none. Any conflicts of interest? Nope. And that takes us to item 1.6, our minutes for confirmation. Can I get a mover and seconder for those minutes? Moved by Jeremy, seconded by Tony. Any comments? No. All those in favour? Fantastic. That takes us to item 2.1, which is the community grant application request for funding for the centre grade. Page 75. Can I get a mover and seconder for this one? Thank you, Dally. Seconded by Jeremy. Had his hand up. Thanks, Jeremy. Any discussion? Right. Okay, I can kick off the discussion on this one. We're all on the same page? Page 73, sorry.
73 is there.
Why does yours, mine say 75?
No, it's next page. Report's on page 73.
Oh, sorry, okay. That's my 11-year-old assistant who put my tabs in. School holidays. Sorry.
Bit of a public minimum payroll.
Yeah. Hey. I thought of a potential solution for this. Or does anyone want to have some discussion, or should we just jump straight to my?
I'd like to make a comment.
Yes.
I would like to see this as nothing to do with Media Works or the Informer. I'd like to see this as a community grant to something where the council pays the bills directly. So I would like to see us just approve 3,250 to pay the direct bills for the.
Well, that's very clean and tidy, and I support that. And I also note that the netballers were unable to, they didn't need our $2,000, so there is some funds there. But if we can pick up exactly, as you say, direct bills, whether that be for STMS or bands or whatever, pay them directly.
And through the chair, I'd be very happy for it to be publicised that the community board has supported the event.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, how do you want that? Do we need to modify that agenda?
So we need to modify the resolution, receives the request for
Can I
funding.
just make a suggestion on that? Can we just change number 2 to say approves the request of 3250 for costs associated with Whaneka Centre Parade event, full stop. And an additional one, that staff be authorised to, it's authorised to finalise the details of how the funds are to be paid out.
But through the chair, that implies that we are supporting this application, which is.
You wanted them paid out to direct accounts or something like that?
I'd prefer to leave it for staff to finalise how to pay it. I think the main point is it doesn't get paid to any commercial organisation. Which,
So the money would go directly for services.
There's a media opportunity around that to make sure that the community board does get recognition, because it is ratepayers' money.
Absolutely. Right, so
Could I just make a suggestion? I'd still like to keep from the community grants budget in the resolution if possible, because we like to know how it's funded, but you can just take out that GL code, that doesn't need to be there.
Okay.
Thank you.
okay, thanks, Donna.
But, process of reviewing it and direct staff to finalise how the funds are being allocated. Is that
Spent, allocated will be fine. Is everybody comfortable with that?
via,
Yes.
allocated via the community grants budget? Is that comfortable with everyone?
Just what was the event from community grants budget? What was the-
Okay, all that, sorry, yes,
So
Kirsten?
through the chair, just in relation to that centre grade, I haven't seen the application, but Media Works and the Informer do a whole lot of stuff to arrange the day. And I know that they do sausage sizzles and all that kind of stuff. If we're going to pay the invoices directly and there's nobody taking charge, perhaps, of the centre grade, who will, are we saying that we are organising it?
No, that's not what we're saying.
No,
Nothing's changing.
it will be that there'll be tangible things like STMS cost $2,000. We will be able to
Right.
contribute to the provider of the STMS
Okay.
as an example
Yeah.
of how that funding will be spent.
All we're doing is finding a way of paying the grant out without paying it to a commercial organisation.
Okay.
So it goes direct to the community.
Okay,
Just
Tony?
for a later date, I think when we're next talking to the Business Association, because I didn't even know the last meeting was on, but at the end of the day, I think it's good that we are supporting this event because it is very, very well supported. So the beneficiaries are those who go, but the retail sector, and my understanding of the Business Association is that they've got good membership, but not necessarily from the retail sector. So I think they need to work harder for those people, particularly down the main streets where this thing goes, for them to contribute going forward. Because at the end of the day, there's a benefit to them. And if we weren't of a mind to do this, they would have a day where they don't have potentially 1,500 people in Albert Street and Monk Street and to Leicester and Plain, and the retail opportunities that presents. So the Business Association to me need to do more to get those people into their flock.
okay, all right, so all those in favour of that updated resolution?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Carried. Fantastic. So item 2.2, which is our correspondence report. Mover and a seconder, please.
What's it for?
The correspondence report, page 85.
I'll move it.
Thanks.
I've gone past it.
Thank you, Delly and Jeremy. I see there's only one attachment there, which is the one that I mentioned about netball receiving funds elsewhere, which is fantastic that they were proactive.
Well done, netball.
Yes, so all those in favour?
Aye.
Opposed? None, that's carried. Item 3.1, which is on page 88, the Hahe Visitor Car Park Booking Centre.
We do have Derek coming in.
Oh,
We're
Derek is dialing in.
Yeah, we do have.
Just while we're doing that, can we get a mover and a seconder for the report?
I'll move to receive it.
Thank you. Tony and Delly, yeah, fantastic. Hello, Derek, not yet? I'll call him.
Okay. Not sure what that means. We are having a bit of a weird, oh, there he is. Derek, are you there?
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Morning, Derek, how are you?
Good. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Thank you. Good morning.
Right, so we just got to item 3.1, which is the Hahei Visitor Car Park Booking Centre.
Okay. Thank you. So you want me to quickly read you through this?
I think you can take it as we've all read it. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone have any comments, questions?
No, I don't. Yeah, a couple.
Okay, all right.
First question was, what, I guess, I mean, reading through the documentation, what does the model look like? I guess it's not clear. For me, it wasn't clear whether the long-term plan would be to create a building, like essentially like that all the concession holders would operate out of. Essentially, it could arguably be a visitors type centre.
Or information centre.
Or an information centre. Is the thinking that would be one single building. I think the principle of it is pretty sound, in the fact that it will bring everyone into one central spot and then be distributed out of there, which I think from a community's perspective would be good from traffic management. So that was one question. And the second one was, with a facility like that, would that allow the potential for more concession holders to operate out of that beach?
Both good questions, Jeremy. So through the chair, what does it look like? So physically, we haven't got any concepts at the moment, and that would probably be devised with the concessionaires, the tourism operators. So I'm picturing sort of a container, modernised container sort of look, possibly one, maybe two in an L shape. And stuck in a portion of the car park where it's away from residential boundaries. So not a huge footprint, and possibly a container type look. So it's a temporary nature, so that if it doesn't work or we don't get the buy-in, then these things can be moved off. That would be my sort of vision at the moment. And the second, sorry, what was the second question? I've just lost my train of thought on that one. Would there be more concessionaires allowed?
Would it allow the ability to have more concession holders operate out of it? Because you've got a central facility. So, I mean, I guess one of the pushback from the community is the fact of the saturation with cars and people down by the beach. There's always been a big factor where essentially you're eliminating a lot of those issues by encouraging people to park and do whatever they need to do out of a central facility.
So that would be something that the board would decide in terms of, again, we're going through the reserves management plan process at the moment, and the board would have the deciding options over whether to allow for more concessionaires or not. At this stage, I wouldn't envisage any more additional. I mean, the intention is obviously to try to declutter the village. And once that intent is achieved, I don't see why we would want to provide additional facilities there. But again, it's a decision making for the board to come to.
But just on that, we need to be clear that they're totally separate processes. So this would not affect the number of concessions issued at the beach. That's a totally separate process.
Sort of. I think, and the fact is, if you create a facility that might matter house a whole lot of operations, that may allow you to look favourably on having more concessions run out of one beach.
Yeah, but as Derek said, that's a...
I know they're two separate, but
they're totally separate.
I think the problem is with something like this, and I do support, I think it's a great thing, is it does open a can of worms long term of add-ons and everything else it could create. And thirdly, the last one I had was, do you imagine that these particular concession holders that exist now could operate their operations out of this building? So I guess my point being here is they currently hold rental or shops or facility, their offices in town, could they have the space to rent, and that would be their base? Is that what you're thinking? So they wouldn't require office space in town?
Well, I mean, they could have their own, continue to operate their own space. The idea that we're proposing is some form of collaborative venture, which obviously needs to get them around the table to discuss this. So those points, again, comes down to their own decisions, whether or not they want to continue their own commercial venture and have a stake in this operation as well. Not sure.
Well, Derek, I think, so Derek and I have talked about this quite a bit. So the vision is that there will be a place where they can sell tickets and pick up and drop off passengers, not run their business from it. But they could sell tickets, but that's the limit of what they could do in this facility.
So
we're not setting up a business park. We're setting up a place for tourists to be picked up and dropped off and to buy their tickets from. That's all. Yeah.
Sorry, Dylan. Murray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Derek's probably not going to like what I say, but I've been campaigning for a long time on information centres, the fact that operators should be selling tickets, the fact that operators should be operating information centres, not communities, because I think there's enough revenues within the information centres to operate that. So I think this is part of a bigger picture of looking at how information centres are operating, where their funding comes from, where our operators are, the whole bit. And I think we need some more work done on that. And as I've said a number of times with the changing pattern now, I look at the 625,000 we're putting into destination Coromandel, and I say, is that the best use of funding that we can do for our operators? And I think this is just a macro problem. And I think we need, well, I support the concept, but I think we need to do a bit more work on the whole gamut.
I agree with you, and I also think before looking for resource consents, we need to be talking to the operators as well.
My comment was, I support the idea, and I've seen this overseas. And in a lot of ways, it ends up being a bit of a bus shelter and an information board, and also a place where folks can ring up an operator. There might just be a sign with an 0800 number, and they're ringing up and they're saying, I've arrived now, can you come and pick me up? Or I've turned up for my trip, where's the bus or the boat or the whatever. So I think it's a small step. It's not going to be a big commercial operation initially, but I actually support the idea. I think it's quite a sound idea.
I like the way that it will bring people off parking on the beaches and things, and bring them in to that car park.
And to understand that's where you meet your operators.
Yeah, you meet and you leave from there and you come back to your car there. That to me makes a big amount of sense. Bill, Winnie?
I agree with you. The whole idea of the car park was to get rid of the dross on the foreshore. So there's nothing to argue on that one, is there?
All right. No, okay, so the resolution as it stands receives the Hahei Visitor Car Park, approve the lodging of a resource consent by council for a Hahei Visitor Car Park booking centre in accord with the proposal set out in the report to the community board meeting. So you've met with the commercial guys? Sorry, Derek, who am I asking?
Oh, sorry. Good.
Yep.
Do you want to answer that, Derek?
How does the commercial operators feel about this?
So the germ of the idea has partly come about from the fact that we receive constant requests and applications to operate from that car park by the commercial operators. So they want to do it, but we can't allow them to do it because at the moment, you know, the current consent does not allow for that. So it's an extension of the current consent. We've built this infrastructure, so this would enable that. So there is the demand out there.
So the building is funded by who?
Would be, well, again, it has to be worked out, but at this stage we're not budgeting for provision of any form of building. I would imagine by way of some
Yeah, that's a very good point.
there's a
But feel
difference
like we
between
would lie on the
operations.
table till we get additional information.
Can I just make a suggestion on that? Can we just say approve the principle and ask the staff to report back with the detail, with the detail of how it would work, how it would be implemented?
I'm happy with that.
Okay,
Providing that the distinction between buying tickets
But I'd
and
also like to start
operations
looking, when I was asking the question.
but that will be in the detail as well.
well, that, it must be in the detail, otherwise we're dealing with two different issues.
So I'm just, so we're clear, so you're saying go ahead and apply for the resource consent or put it
No.
out, just come back with detail
With
before
the
we.
answer these sorts of questions.
Habits for that.
Yeah. Okay. Approves in principle and requests that staff return with more details for full consideration.
Something like that?
Okay, I'm happy with that. All those in favour of that being changed to approves the concept in principle and requests that staff return with more details for full consideration?
Yes.
Okay, all those in favour?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Carried. Fantastic.
Derek, you still there?
Yeah.
You got our note that Murray and I are in Thames on Tuesday and Wednesday, and we can catch up to see you.
Thank you. I'll flick you an email about that later today.
No way.
Thank you.
Okay, so Derek, you'll be here for item 3.2, which is the commercial operator's licence.
Yes, correct.
Yes?
Yep.
Okay. Can I have a mover and seconder to receive the report, please?
Yep.
Jeremy and Dally, thank you. Any comments, any questions?
Fair enough, I always thought.
Yeah, I'm pretty straightforward. All those in favour?
Madam Chief, could I just like to speak to this?
Okay.
I believe that we're setting a precedent. This, according to the application, it was on the 11th of the 9th, we received the application. I don't necessarily disagree with the application. If we do approve it, I would like it noted that we think this is extenuating circumstances when we approve it. Because I don't want to see us, if someone comes in late, we've always said, that's the cut-off, we're not going to take it. And I think we need to note some notations around this, that we consider this extenuating circumstances because staff communicated with Mr. Laird. We are told in the report, but then it said Mr. Laird didn't communicate back. I find the report is in some inconsistencies in the report. So I'd just like to note that if we do pass it, we put some words around it, that we note this is inconsistent with our policy.
Okay.
In the resolution or in the notes?
In the notes.
In the notes.
So long as it's noted that we are approving it inconsistent with our policy, if that's the motion of the board.
Okay. Any other comments? So you'll put that in the notes, Jen?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that.
Okay. No, but it's a valid point. It is. All right, so all those in favour?
Aye.
Opposed? None, so that's carried. Taking us to item 4.1, which is the footpath construction and streetlight installation on page 122. 122. Can I have a mover and second to receive the report, please?
I'll move.
Thank you, Bill. Seconded by Dally. Fantastic. Oh, I had a question around, is Sam?
Hello.
Morning, Sam. Welcome.
Hi.
So we're just on item 4.1, which is the street lights and footpaths.
Yep.
And I had one question for you. The sites remaining to be done, site 5, Albert Street, area in front of shops 1 to 5.
Yep.
Wouldn't that have been incorporated in the town centre upgrade?
Or square, I think.
Oh, is it that?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, okay. Forget, yep.
Yep.
Sorry. that needs to happen, because it's pretty grotty down there, eh? Any other comments?
I was just trying to understand, I know that the preferred option is option 3 for staff. Just trying to understand the power, the underground power and where that is and what it is. For the two extra power, lights.
Is that the Esplanade from
So we're talking about 2 different things there, the underground and the power is.
Well, I think the staff's preferred option is to exclude the underground power.
Yeah, because we don't have enough money to do it.
Yep. I was just trying to understand how, can you do that without, and still do the 7 lights, can you?
There's 2 separate things. The 7 lights are along the Esplanade from Blacksmith Lane to the wharf.
Yep.
The undergrounding the power is from the wharf up to Albert Street.
Okay, all on the Buffalo Beach side.
Yeah.
Copy. Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so
Option 3.
option 3,
Yeah. Makes sense to
okay.
me.
That was Bill and Delhi for the.
Yes, it was Bill and Delhi
Thank you.
that moved and seconded. Okay, everybody's comfortable with option 3? All those in favour?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried, all right. Thanks, Sam.
Cool. Thank you. See ya.
See you. All right, which takes us to 4.2, which is our Mercury Bay Work Programme on page 127. Can I please have a mover and a second to receive the report?
I'll second.
Tony and Murray, thank you. It says Bruce here, but I'm guessing this is you.
Yeah, or Brian if we need him, yeah. Or Donna if we need him.
Okay, fantastic. We're all here. Holy moly, we've got some horsepower in the room today.
Feel so supported.
The word must be out about Mercury Bay.
Have we got nice cookies or something today?
Just trying to keep people like you on track.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, luckily.
Yeah. Good luck with that.
I'm sure I'm taking something out.
All right, any comments, any questions? All right, everybody's happy?
I don't really have anything to highlight.
Did you wanna-
Chair.
yeah.
No, don't really have anything to highlight. It's still relatively early in the year, so things are pretty much on track so far.
And through the chair, I'd just like to say that it's so clear and easy to understand.
Yeah.
The colour coding, everything just works really, really well. And appreciate staff work on that.
Absolutely.
The only thing, can I just flag, in the past, you've had another bit on the end of this report called other information, which was basically stuff that wasn't project related, but other initiatives. That's the one we did for the last meeting, so it's got half a dozen items and things on it. Somehow we managed to miss it on this one, but just so you know, we'll reinstate that for the next meeting, that those other issues will be listed on there. That was things like Speedway and green waste facilities and things like that, yeah, so SMPs and that, just keeping you up to date with some of those things.
It's nice to see the skate park construction sort of in full swing, lots of big trucks and diggers and mud and mess, that's fantastic.
Nice photo team, sorry I missed that one, and if it was an omission, so Jeremy.
Alan, just on the domain, Hotwater Beach domain car park, I see there's some issues around the, do you have any idea when they might be sealed?
Yeah, so there's actually 2 of them, there's the Bull Paddock car park and the Domain Road car park that both got the same issues. We're working hard to try and get the whole thing sorted before the busy summer season starts, but there's an issue with quality of metal and things like that, which is, so we've got our main contractor and they have a dispute with the person, the company that supplied the metal, so that's trying to be resolved, so there's a bit of, yeah, there's a few issues to work through apparently in relation to that.
Right, but the intention is hoped to get it tidied up.
That's what we're aiming for, yeah.
Yeah. And the toilet? And that same, in the domain cover?
The Domain car park toilets, is that on here?
Yes, the very last item.
There we go.
Next year.
No, I'd have to get an update from Ross on that. That definitely won't be pre-Christmas.
Yeah.
It'll be post-summer.
Yeah.
Have the gates coming for the bridge? Taputabuatia?
Not yet, but they are due to be installed, to arrive and be installed this week.
Okay,
We're going to
fantastic.
try and hopefully open it on Saturday.
There's a photo op.
Yeah.
It's going to look cool, actually.
It's going to be very exciting. Okay. No more comments? All those in, yes, sorry.
Quick question about Taputapuatia, sort of slightly unrelated. Is it going to have a blessing or an opening?
I imagine Joe will do
Yes, we have
something.
talked to Joe about that. He suggested Saturday morning. So
It's
that's why I say
got a
Saturday.
wide, what is it, a wide, or it's got a proper archway, so it probably need to be blessed.
Yeah, that archway is not actually going in at this point in time.
Okay.
We're just going to have 2 poles. For now, there's a little.
2 or 2 poles?
2 poles is staying exactly like it is for now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Poles, not poles.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification.
That was further
Talk
down.
to Joe about that as well.
Okay, cool.
All right. All right, sorry, all those in favour, please say aye. Opposed? None carried. Okay, this takes us to 5.1, which is our action schedule, which is, you've got a hard copy being tabled by Jen. Thanks, Jen. Can I have a mover and a second to receive?
Thank you.
Thanks, Delly. Seconded by Bill. Thank you, Bill. All right, any comments? We've all had a chance to. This is a good little table.
That's great.
Okay, all those in favour?
Aye.
Okay, once more with conviction.
People are still reading?
Sorry, okay, you want a bit more time?
Yeah.
Was it, are we going to go through it or?
What, do you,
Well, I don't know, there's quite some quite good stuff. I don't know, it might be worth just getting a small update on it for some of them.
okay,
Well, I have a comment, I've got some comment particularly like on the first one, for instance. So I understand, so the thing that people have to be very clear on is that the shoreline management plan process is not something only being done in the Thames-Coromandel district, it's being done elsewhere. But within our district, it's being done for every ward. And what comes out of that is really going to determine, A, the priority of work that's needed and how it's going to get funded. And I mentioned here the other day, there's one issue in Thames right now, which is 187 million, which is a bigger problem than what's at Buffalo Beach. So there is a process that we're going to have to go through, because no one is going to say, well, we'll piecemeal, we'll do this one now, and we'll catch up on it later on. And the other thing is cost, and I have grappled with this because our responsibility is to protect council assets, not individual homes or anything else. And so there's no assets at risk. However, there is a high degree of community value in that particular reserve, and particularly the activity that happens on it. And I think if it happened on one of our other reserves, so it'd be with a rugby club or netball or ponies or what, wouldn't matter what it was, scouts, we would do something about it. But I think we need to make it quite clear to the boating club that we're not in the game of saving the boating club. Because if we do that, we're in the game of saving every house on Buffalo Beach and around the whole peninsula that are in these spaces. So for me, it's a tricky one, but when I asked the question about a third, because I can sort of reconcile myself to say that's reasonably fair, because we're protecting something that has community value, and particularly for youth, and with a voluntary group. And I think that is a worthy thing to do. But if there's an expectation that the council are going to stump up with a whole lot, then that's different. So I think the boating club, I hear they've got no money, but neither have we. We can go and borrow money, Probably more money than they can probably borrow, but I think we're just going to be quite careful about what the expectations are here and how we actually manage those, because I wasn't in the meeting, but I've had come back from a third, and I can sort of live with that. But again, the Scouts had to raise their money, the Rugby Club raised their money, the Netball Club raised their money, the Cricket Club raised their money. Everyone raises money. The skaters raise money. And so if they want to save this thing, the boating club are ready to go and get some skin in the game. And sitting back saying, sorry, we've got no money. If that's the case, pretty hard to convince someone who can't even see it to go and invest money in something that may not happen. So I only raise that as a comment that there's a lot of passion there, and we hear a lot, but it's not simple, and it's not going to be cheap, because the money that we've been told about, 436,000, there's another 100,000 that consented probably.
Yeah. Delhi. Thanks, Tony.
I was disappointed in the flippant comment about selling sausages, because we've got a history, including when my daughter went to the World Scholar Athlete Games. The group raised over $100,000 and sought corporate sponsorship and all sorts of funding streams. It is possible to raise that sort of amount of money, and there are organisations that will help and show pathways and applications to do so, because there's no disputing that these guys are doing a fantastic job, and it's not an emotional argument at all, it's a practical one. I agree with Tony, if there was some way we could fund the Ray Blackler type of situation, but get it past regional council, that's probably one of the biggest stumbling blocks.
I'd just like to mention, if I may, at the foreshore management group that met recently, one or two notable absentees, no representation from WRC at all.
Was this for the panel that you sit on for the shoreline management plan?
Yep.
Wow.
And there seems to be that they don't really understand what is happening at sea level, for want of a better word. A bit airy-fairy. At this stage, I'm being very cautious about the work that they're going to do, because they're thinking so generally, they're losing specifics. Now, I think the worst argument that the boating club has is that they're not an asset owned by council. There's no infrastructure to save. However, I agree with Tony that the foreshore itself is an asset that needs to be protected.
Okay, all right.
But that's for further discussion.
Yeah, and I think staff are going to pull together a report on this.
Good.
And
That'd be awesome.
yeah, we'll see. I mean, unfortunately, it's a process that we have to go through. I mean, I know that there's a sense of real urgency, but we need this report to come back and we can make some decisions based on that. Were there any other comments?
I just want to make my concern that there is argument about the level of retreat and the speed thereof. And that is something that we really need to nail down before we make any decisions about throwing public money into a private organisation.
Any other comments on the action report? Action schedule, sorry?
It's great, Jen. I think
Yeah,
it's
it's nice.
It's achieved what we exactly want to achieve.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of trying to tick through them.
Yeah.
Because, I guess one of the things we've always, and not having a huge history, is when we have these public forums, everyone sort of sits there and they use the social services line. I think that initiative is fantastic, but we just sort of sit here and she walks away, and I think she's probably thinking what actually happens. I mean, that was probably not a good example, because we did say we would write a letter of support, but a lot of the time these public forums, everyone sort of sits here, doesn't want to say anything, and then they walk out of the room, and that's the end of it. I'm just not sure how.
Well, this certainly captures that.
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah.
Most of that stuff gets on here. It gives us an opportunity to
And through the chair, the protocol with those public forums are that we are, you know, and I've had to say this to a few people, is that we are meant to sit here and listen respectfully, and it's not really a two-way conversation. And I think sometimes people feel like, oh, well, everyone just looked at me blankly and didn't say anything, but it is, maybe we need to remind public when we put out our comms that we shut up and pay them the respect of listening to them.
If you're on the other side, you'd be wondering.
I've had people ask me, like,
so
nobody reacted and nobody said anything, so.
Trying to give a heads up, because it does, when I do interact with the public, so
Right.
most times I.
So maybe we could start.
Jen's just saying that when people book.
Stating that as well.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Don't be upset if you don't get asked any questions.
Yeah.
This is not the forum, it's for you. We record it, we follow it up. So they know. Unless you've got questions of.
Because it is disconcerting.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
And Jen was just whispering in my ear to say that she does let folks know when they register with her that the standing orders and how things will run.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, perfect. But I will try and remember to let people know for our next public forum.
Yeah, that'd be very good, thanks.
Any other comments on the action schedule? No? Okay. All those in favour? Opposed? None carried. Fantastic. That takes us to our members' reports. Can I please have a mover and seconder to receive the members' reports?
Yeah.
Tony and Bill, thank you. Which end do we want to start at?
I've been approached, as some of you are aware, of the concern from the boating club. I passed information on to Heather, which I assume you now have, Alan. John Evans is passionate to the point of, I don't know. He gets very excited. He was a member of the foreshore management team, but has subsequently resigned. He is claiming that we've been sitting on our hands for the last 12 years and doing nothing, and he has no confidence in any support from this new organisation, so he's left with it. So he's black and white depending on the day. Yeah. Apart from that, I've had a relatively quiet time. I've had one resident complain about the work of the people who were putting in the cables, and there was an issue that they hadn't completed the job. And Gail has sorted it out within 24 hours, and he's delighted. So I can put that up as the only plus of the week.
Fantastic. Thank you, Bill. Tony?
Right, for me, I've had a number of trips to Hamilton on roading issues, and the issue of speed in the vicinity of schools, particularly on state highway, as opposed to in communities, but communities also, aged care facilities, etc., is being raised constantly. But the one I have is for our area school, is speed there. So while we had Pat with us, he was regularly there, and that was a deterrent for anyone speeding past there, because even old Pat could just wave his finger and everyone slowed down. And the other is, these two things are side by side, and the other one is the people crossing the median strip on Joan Gaskell Drive outside the gym, 100% electrical in that area. So apart from the damage it's actually doing to the swale in there, which is part of the drainage, it doesn't look good. So I would like us to be writing a letter to the local police to ask for more presence in the vicinity of the school, and B, more presence on Joan Gaskell Drive, and to start issuing some tickets, because that will stop the problem. Because putting a median strip down there, A, it'll be costly, and it's not required. People just need to change their behaviour and follow the arrows and drive out and drive responsibly. So I'm just asking from that we do that, and I'd like to actually get a response from Sergeant Morrison to tell us, is he or isn't he going to do it, and if he is doing it, when does he do it? I have met yesterday with the new transport or roading manager, Ed Varley. I think he'll be a great asset to us. He comes with an awful lot of experience, both overseas and in New Zealand. And he, apart from talking about the structure of roads and maintenance of roads and stuff, he is very well versed with what that is in terms of regulation. But he is also very, very good in the area of options for speed. So there's one, some people have had it, but the new subdivision of Longreach, for instance, they've now got an issue with people coming and going, because you can go in and out from two ways, onto a 100-kilometre-an-hour road. So at some stage, there will probably be a need to slow traffic down on either side of those roads. And we've got some options now, not put signs up, because signs are $40,000 each, but use some of the road marking stuff that is used elsewhere in New Zealand, not a lot of it, but overseas, and ripple strips. You know, so about $4 a square metre. So for $1,000, you can make a big difference. And to just simply have people find something happen in their car to say, I better slow down. But anyhow, he is on top of that sort of stuff. So I think there'll be a slightly different focus on some of those things from a road safety perspective. And I was very impressed with him. So, and now that I absolutely support what Cheryl was saying, to have, in fact, I was in Thames myself yesterday, also renewing my licence, and I see people there getting it, and you go there and find out they're not the driver's test today, it's to fill out the form today, go home, and then come back on another day and make your appointment through NZTA and not through, you know.
Yeah.
So I think there's a very good, you know, there'll be more youth here getting licences, I suspect, than in Thames. So why not bring them here once a month so that people can do the test here? And so I would like us to sort of strongly worded in our support for what Cheryl put in front of us today. So that's it for me.
No problem. Thanks, Tony. And I support that letter to the police as well in terms of their presence in both of those areas. Yeah. I think that's a really good idea.
Can I just, 2 or 3 things, can I just add to that? And there's been an initiative in South Auckland where they're trying to get unlicensed drivers licensed. And perhaps getting them to go to the Ministry of Transport and Police support would help on that, because we are 100 k's from the nearest place. I think there's good grounds for doing that. On a positive note, I went to Coromandel on Saturday and they had their HMS Coromandel celebration, their Loom Festival. Tell you what, they were doing well over there. It was very, very good day.
Oh, fantastic.
I just want to express a degree of frustration. And I get frustrated when I see the boating club time and time again come. And I think with the staff resources and all of us, we all know the problem. We're all working on the problem. We all spend more and more resource on the problem. The problem is $500,000 to fix. It's one of many in the district. You know, if we decide to fund it locally, it's about $125 a ratepayer. And I'm sure the local ratepayers have loved that piled on. And I get frustrated at what are we expected to do? And then I look at, we had a presentation on water this morning, and I gave about a half an hour diatribe to one of the other protagonists about water. And, you know, if we want to water our grizzlineers and if we want to water our kauri trees, do we want to pay the money? And I know water's district, but there's 9 water supplies, and how do we get it through to these people that water is a precious resource? Water is available for sanitation and human resources. But if they think that this town, and I say this on the record, if anyone thinks that this town is going to have an urban water supply that will water all the gardens of this town at the peak of summer in a drought, they are dreaming, absolutely dreaming. Because at the moment, to get a supply to store the industry water is about $1.5 million a day, and a town of 4,000 people. So I just get severely frustrated that we get all these presentations and we put this information out there, and I've said it on the radio a number of times and bits and pieces, but I actually think we need to get some of these figures out there, because We had a presentation this morning and that particular gentleman, I've spent a long time with him explaining the figures, and he still wants to water his grazillias and he still wants to water his carry trees, and he's also said that he didn't think they would support meters. So I look at the sheer frustration, and I'm getting frustrated that we try our level best at these meetings to do things, and some people think we're absolute idiots, but they will not look at the magnitude of the problem. So I express that frustration, Madam Chair. That's my lot.
Thank you.
I think we've thrashed the yacht club out enough. But it's, yeah, I look forward down on the board. I think there's two sides to it. They're one, and I'm sure we'll get a good resolution. I attended a meeting last week on the Hahei wastewater and water report. And it was really interesting. I think Mo and Ned have done a great job, and I think there's 3 or 4 proposals. And I think now it's up to really, there's obviously the cost implications, but there wasn't a lot of detail around that. But I think from a Hahei's perspective, I think they need to get themselves in order and figure out from a community perspective whether they want or support something, so they have some sort of alignment there.
Are they quite aligned?
I don't know, to be honest.
No, okay.
Yeah, I think it's a 3-stage process. First stage would be, I think an environmental good move and such that it would be the houses that border the Wigmore stream as a first step, firmly for wastewater.
Yeah.
And there's also talk about potential of taking over the private water supply, the control of the bore, which would be a good thing in the fact that the aquifer would be run by the council rather than two. And there's not a lot of cost or issues involved with doing that. Just before, a gentleman gave me this, just on long reach, and he pointed out that obviously with, I think Tony just touched on it too, the new access into Cook's Beach, which is obviously probably going to become the preferred choice for a lot of people. And he raised the issue with speed through along, I haven't actually driven it myself, but it main road borders the playground. And he's saying that there will be people that are coming through with speed there, and can there be some, I looked at it, some sort of speed humps through there. I'd have to see it myself, so I'll probably drive it face value. It sort of potentially makes sense. I don't know if there's any, and he raised about toilets, and I said, look, there'll probably be a bit of pushback about toilets. It's been obviously a hot topic and there's a lot of costs involved. So, but I think it is probably just tabling, and it's worth looking at the potential of it becoming an issue with speed through there.
Is the developer still engaged?
Yeah, okay, good.
Development? Is the developer still around, or have they finished?
It's still under construction, so I don't know whether we've got any ability to.
Can you retrospectively ask them to do so?
No, they'll already have their consent in place, so there won't be any opportunity. It would have to be by some sort of negotiation if we were to try and get something put in, but I think it's a matter we should prefer to have transport.
Yeah.
Our rating manager and get him to have a look at the situation and provide some advice back to us on that.
How do I go about asking that to happen?
Give it to me.
Alan, can we?
Just wait.
Alan, can you have a look at that?
I can have a look at that.
Then when you go to Dave Weaver, was he back working for us?
Yes.
Ah.
As a consultant.
Okay, because I talked to them yesterday, they were out there this week, looking at it. So I went and spoke to them about it, and they've already been spoken.
That's good.
But it does officially follow up through Alan for us.
Last on, I was having a coffee this morning, and one lady came up to me that owns one of the businesses in town and asked the question is, who cleans this main street with rubbish, and is there a contractor to actually clean in this main street? Because her opinion, it's not been done very well. So I don't know. She's picking up rubbish constantly out of gardens and stuff like the footpaths and stuff. So
sorry, in terms of the maintenance of the gardens, that's still under maintenance under the contract.
Yep.
Those an issue with Dempsey Wood and the subcontractor that did the gardens.
Okay.
In terms of the weeding and all that sort of thing.
It's more about rubbish, I think.
Yeah, no, that's a council contract.
It's a street smart. Yeah. Okay. So I don't know if they can be just highlight to them that maybe need to look at their quality of service. Just on with Cheryl, wasn't it? You know, it was interesting to hear her say about the driver's licensing, and I think for me it really just shows how this town's sort of moving on as a town. You know, I think the fact that we're going to need services like that, I think it's pretty cool. And I know when I got my licence, I wouldn't be that excited about waiting 8 weeks when you turn to the age you get your licence, or something you want to do the next day. So I think, you know, for me it was just what it did highlight is I think this town is heading. And I think, getting services like that are a really important part of us progressing as a town. You know, I sense, certainly from people I speak to, that this town is moving in a good direction and quickly, and we need to, as a board, I think we're doing a good job. We need to keep making sure we are ahead of the curve, so we do our job. And that's just, if we can do our part to support that, I think it's really good. And that's really all I had, I think. Oh, sorry, one last one. The skate park, the current ramp, there's an appetite to have it on the dark side. Somewhere, I don't know where that would be, might be Cook's Beach. Has it been earmarked for anywhere?
Not at this stage, it hasn't, no. But there is an expectation that there will be some sort of return, that it might be sold rather than given. Is the only thing in terms of providing some more funding to help with this one, but that's probably negotiable as well.
Okay.
But there have been a number of communities that expressed an interest, but nobody's really come back with anything definite that they can do in their communities.
Workshop, maybe, can you put on workshop agenda?
Yeah, well, could I table that? It'd be nice to go somewhere over that side.
Yeah, I think probably
facility like that, because I mean, that's probably one thing the kids on that side miss out on. They don't have obviously just through, they don't have the opportunity.
You could be on ferry business, the ship over here.
Money. I think certainly a conversation with Andrew, because he seems to sort of know. And I know that when we took that photo the other day, I was asking the skaters what will happen.
Right, who owns it? My understanding, the council owns it.
Yes, yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Right.
So, but they are keen to see it resurrected and alive somewhere for another community to use as well.
Reincarnated.
But it needs some work, I think,
but maybe a community get in and sort that out.
Yeah, exactly.
So maybe that's an action.
Action schedule. Is that?
That's me.
Okay, fantastic. Dali?
Yeah, agree totally with what Jeremy was saying about the town moving forward, and we have been identified as the future largest town or centre on the Coromandel. And just a point about driver licensing, my last child to be licensed was probably about 15 years ago or 14 years ago, and it was a problem then. So this isn't even something new, it's been going on for the last decade plus, that you couldn't get in and couldn't easily come licensed. I had some compliments on the Taputapuatia Bridge and a couple of brickbats as well, so there you go, things haven't changed. Love to be kept in the loop on the roundup, because I've been having roundup glyphosate conversations with people in the community. So that's I'd like it noted, I've got a real interest in that, if there are any reports coming back or any progress. I think I've done. Yeah, good on you. Had we had another meeting after I'd had the workshop in Coromandel Town with the extreme zero waste. Okay, so I attended the extreme zero waste workshop in Coromandel Town. And then two of the representatives came over here to talk to a small group of members. It was absolutely amazing, and I personally would like, as we're going through our process of developing our transfer station / recycle facility / upcycle repurpose facility, to utilise these guys from Raglan in a consultant manner, because they've got a decade plus, couple of decades under their belt.
16 years.
Of experience, and they have got to the point where they're diverting 87%, I think it was, from landfill, and they've got stuck there. But if other towns like Thames, Coromandel, Whittianga all get together, they're now looking at ways to create revenue streams that if we combine a certain product, be it, I don't know, coffee cup, I'm feeling very guilty, that creates something that is saleable, then the economy of scale of working together on some of those waste streams should be investigated, and that's me.
Okay, thank you. So I had that session with the two folks from Zero Waste who came here. Really good of them to give up their Sunday morning. We spent 2 hours and it was a really fantastic conversation. And subsequently, I went back to Raglan afterwards, just recently, and they've really, that whole Zero Waste is in their entire community. It's in their coffee shops. There's sandwich boards baling twined to their rubbish bins and things saying, where you can stick your single-use cup and all sorts of things. So it's really in their community, and I would love to see us make sure that in the lead up to our new waste transfer station / repurpose recycle centre, that we make the most of it as a town and we really get our community in on this journey, because I think we've got one shot at really dragging everyone along.
So what's the next step? That's what I forgot to say.
Can I just ask a question from something you just said?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just thinking, in other places, you can buy, instead of having your plastic rubbish bag, you can buy a sticker. And would it be in order to put a suggestion to council that you can use paper bags if you wish, but you buy a sticker from council? So you're not bound to use a plastic rubbish bag.
That is such a Bruce Hinson question. He would have an answer straight away, but that's a great idea.
Yeah. It's just something you...
Oh, here we go.
I'll just give it, I just chose. Hand the reins back till next week and say, right, ship in for, tell me that's a great idea and let's go with it.
Well, I know.
It makes such sense, and if people can buy the bags that they...
So why can't you have a paper bag and you put a sticker on?
It would be a volume thing, if that would be my only...
Well, it shouldn't make any difference to the collector, but what it does is you start getting the message across, and if people start putting paper bags out, some of them put paper bags out, others are going to follow and gradually get there.
Easy to implement, wouldn't it? Now, mid-contract.
You can do it in the mid-contract and take no difference.
Yeah. Oh, I think it's a great idea.
What's the standards around the paper bag?
Sounds easy.
Sorry?
What's the standards around the paper bag?
The normal paper
bag. They pick it up and it falls apart.
Hang on, I think Alan has got some wise words of wisdom. He's going to bring us back to reality.
You say these multiple bags.
No, not particularly, but
We'll use them for
I'll pretend I'm Bruce for a sec. So good idea. The only thing is that means you would be able to put on any other bag too, probably. Most people would then buy the stickers and put them on black plastic bags.
No, it's got to be in a multiple bag, otherwise we don't.
Yeah, that would be a lot harder to
Well, you
but
might
it's
well
really
put
following up.
multiple bags.
Because a lot of councils still do that. A lot of councils still have stickers rather than.
Yeah,
but the trouble.
I just think it's something we could do as a town, so.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
The trouble in most places is people buy the cheapest possible black bag, plastic
No,
bags,
that's not.
put their sticker on that, so you'd have to find a way around
I know
that.
what you're saying, no, this is only for multiple paper bags.
So why not go back to printing TCDC onto multiple paper bags? And go and buy your paper multi-wall bag, because when I was teaching, that's what you made all your costumes for, Halloween and everything.
Yes,
You
thanks.
can see it's a question of
Paper
cost.
multi-wall
It's a
bags.
question of cost. And I can understand the argument for that, because you're going to pay a lot, if you want to go and buy multiple paper bags, you're going to pay a lot more, and then council will get the revenue for collecting the rubbish.
So maybe people have that choice to do the right thing. They can afford
I don't know,
it.
it's something we could investigate.
Okay.
And just for my help, take it back to the, when we had these bags, do they degrade in the weather? Because I think that'd be
No,
the.
that's why you use multiple.
So they don't, okay.
Well, if they use them in Canada in the snow, and they still put them up, they're all right. Are they?
I can't remember. I back you up 100%.
Look how excited we are about waste.
We love our rubbish.
Yes, exactly.
Well, we don't love our rubbish.
I've asked the question and I'm going to try and find out whether we can take some next steps. But one interesting thing that Rick and Liz are their names, they told me was that they have 16 years of experience. They implemented what they've done over 16 months at Waiuku to help them bring their waste journey.
So we should use that knowledge instead.
And they're really happy to share. They're really happy to share. So there was that. What else have I been up to? Oh, Ryan Taylor is in the room. No skating signs on the main street. Now they're gone.
Yes, so I had a coffee before I came here and watched a few young kids skate along the footpath and crossing a bit dangerously and get out skating. I noticed the sign is gone, so I'll go and have a look at it.
So the sign was there and then the sign went behind the seat and now it's gone. So fantastic. Thank you. That was one thing that a couple of the shop owners had mentioned to me. You've mentioned the medium strip outside the gym, so that's good. And if we can get those letters, that's fantastic. And that's all from me.
And one more thing.
Tony?
The thing that came about the rubbish on the street being looked after and the weeds in the parks. This Creek, it needs, the planting there needs weeding and the creek needs weeding. And I'm happy to go down there and rip the mangroves out of it myself if you want me to, but it needs done. I would say I haven't seen a weed pulled out of that planting since it went in. And it'll just get run over, just like what we planted on the foreshore. They don't weed it and eventually choke it. So I don't know who we're going to see to come out one day, or do we get a community wanting and we all go down with a bag and fill it up with weeds or something, but it doesn't look good.
Just in relation to the new gardens along there, that's without naming the place, when I said before that Dempsey Wood and the gardening contractor are still responsible under maintenance for the gardens. That's what I was referring to. We've been stirring them up this week.
Okay.
So we're trying to get onto that. But with the creek, WRC keeps coming to mind, and mangroves and marine environment.
A few of us went down
marine environment. It's in the tidal area.
And rip them out. Nothing's going to happen.
6 o'clock on Sunday morning.
Except you're on camera right now, Councillor Fox.
No, well, at the end of the day, you can't have the bloody middle of town filled up with mangroves.
I agree.
I was like, fair dues, because I don't, like, environmentally, it's a nightmare. The place will smell like a septic tank if we don't get it out soon.
Is there, just to follow on what Tony's saying, is that something we could approach the ratepayers group about as far as a weeding sort of program? And I mean, good to see a community out there doing, I mean, a lot of the smaller communities, they do weeding and looking after gardens.
I think because it's still under contract at this stage.
I'm thinking further on beyond that.
Okay, so can I just get a mover and seconder to receive the members' reports? We've done that. Okay, all those in favour? Opposed? None. Okay, fantastic. Now we need to move into public excluded. May I have a mover and seconder to move us into public? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right, thanks. Sorry, Tim, you've got to remember
I'm just going to stop recording. So just bear with me a second. I can take a second or two.
Well, it's only really a minute, isn't it?
No, prior.
Okay, and I'm pressing stop record. I'm going to stop recording.
Yes.